So look, Ross, Hulu and ESPN Plus subscribers a little light, but you have to look at that massive subscriber increase and feel some sense of relief, even surprise. I don't know. Is this what you were expecting?
Well, we didn't really have much expectation as far as subscriber because it's so hard to predict what consumers do based off what content's being released on each streamer. But what we now see at the end of this earnings period is that Netflix did lose a certain amount of subscribers to the competitors, one being Disney Plus and the other being Peacock and Paramount Plus. So certainly we don't know if that's a permanent change in behavior because we think streamers go back and forth between what shows are popular at the time. So Disney had very good results for their streaming businesses and much better than we expected because obviously we thought they had a tough comparison to the COVID era. And quite frankly, all of their businesses are starting to improve now, and we're starting to see revenue dramatically increase in parks and resorts and actually a wonderful weekend at the theaters this weekend. So with the valuations so cheap now in the stock market, stocks like Disney are quite compelling for long-term investors.
I thought what CEO Bob Chapek had to say about Disney Plus subscribers who are grown-ups but don't have children was really interesting. Take a quick listen to what he had to say.
It's certainly popular with families, but as a reminder, almost half of Disney Plus subscribers are adults without kids.
And he said he's going to try to cater more to that audience. What do you make of that strategy?
Well, I think his point is really trying to broaden the market because obviously Disney Plus is just a no-brainer if you have kids. So, what would be your impetus to getting what is perceived as a kids channel? But see, when you're talking about adults, you're talking about Gen Xers like us who have grown up with Star Wars. And so what he's really saying is that there's an enormous audience base of people who don't have kids who are really into the IP like Star Wars and Marvel movies, and you'd think, oh, these are kids movies, but they're actually not. They're adult movies and it's adult content, and I think that's why they've been successful, is that there is stuff for different age groups on Disney Plus.
How do you think Disney Plus holds up if Netflix releases a lower priced ad-supported tier?
I don't really see it as an issue. So look at it this way. So you have basically three main streamers now with Hulu, Disney Plus, Netflix, and what will be HBO, Discover, or whatever that is. Those will be the three main players. And then you have Amazon and Apple are the players that don't charge for streaming services, and they try to sell other products. And so when you look at the environment that's out there today, I think Disney's extremely well positioned in the multiple content offerings, also with ESPN Plus, their agreement with UFC, and really their numbers would have been completely blowout numbers if it weren't for the $1 billion they had to pay producers and other people to put stuff on the streamers instead of in the theaters over the last year or two. So Disney took a big hit, investing in the streamers, but that's going to pay off big time for them long term.
Meantime, he's talking about rolling out into 53 new markets. Obviously, we've talked a lot about Netflix's global appeal, a lot of new content coming in from, for example, South Korea and the success of Squid Game. Do you think Disney can repeat that?
No, and I don't think it would benefit them to. Disney has a different approach to content. So if I make a Pixar movie, that will play in all countries in the world. You just change the language, but the content works globally, where Netflix doesn't make kids content really. And so it doesn't work globally. So I've recently watched a lot of the Asian-based shows that they've been making, Korean dramas, Japanese crime movies. I watched some of these stuff on Netflix, and Netflix has a far deeper approach to the local cultures and artistic sensibilities than I think the approach Disney has. So I think that Netflix ultimately is going to be much more successful internationally. And I think what Disney's really focused on is you have Hotstar in India, where they're a main player in India, and it's a massive market. And I think they're very focused on that market. And it makes a lot of sense for them to focus on bigger markets where they can put money into content and not have to spread it between so many regions.
So let's talk about parks. Let's move on and talk about parks because, Chapek's saying domestic parks are firing on all cylinders, but they might have to take a big hit to operating income, $350 million potentially because of the closures of its parks in Hong Kong and Shanghai due to the pandemic. And as we know, Shanghai is on a very restrictive lockdown to this day. How concerned are you about that?
I mean, for me, this is probably the biggest concern I have as an investor right now. I'm not that worried about the Fed actually, because it's easy for them to stop causing pain. But like China we have a lot of business that we do in China, whether it's Apple, Tesla, or Disney, and many others. And this approach in Shanghai has been hugely detrimental to the economy in China, to the people in China, and it may or may not work. I'm less believing that it's going to work. So this is a big issue for Disney on the short term, and maybe even on the medium and long term in a country like China. So I don't expect it to be easy for Disney to do business in China for the foreseeable future because of their goal of having no COVID and the fact that theme parks are sort of the exact opposite of what the Chinese government wants people doing right now. But I do think that that's more a short-term issue than a long-term one, but one that will weigh on Disney.
Well, I wonder if you think doing business in Florida being more difficult is a short or long-term issue. You've been pretty clear that you're not a huge fan of Bob Chapek. You don't think he handled this situation in Florida very well. Disney is now losing these special privileges that they've enjoyed in Florida for decades as a result of this very controversial Don't Say Gay bill. And it's clear that lawmakers in Florida are taking this out on Disney. What's your take on Chapek now? Now that you see these numbers, are you having a change of heart at all, or are you still not a fan?
Well, I mean, he just fired the PR guy, right? For what's going on in Florida. There's a lot of things I don't think he's handling the way I wish. The Florida situation is a really tough one, but I think that Disney wins in the end, because in the end, whether you're on the right wing or the left wing, your kids want to go to Disneyland, and there's a lot of people who type stuff onto Twitter or Facebook, but then they go to Disneyland. So, I don't think that that's such an issue. And really, the politicians in Florida are saddling the people of Florida with higher costs, higher debts, and taxes, because Disney's actually relationship benefits Florida. So what I think is this will smooth out over time, and I think these political wars over the right and the left are more played out in the media than in people's actual behavior.